Good evening. So today we are going to learn very interesting topics. See, first we'll learn how to use a VLOOKUP and what are formulas and how to use formulas in Excel, so that we can just go ahead and see the replacements that we have for VLOOKUP and like which are the better formulas which we can use. And today we are going to actually see match function and dynamic VLOOKUP functions. So let us just go ahead and just try to see it once. So first, let us just see what are formulas in Excel. Okay. See, a formula is anything and everything that calculates the data or gives some based on some calculations gives us some out. Okay. So in Excel, any formula we have to always start it with an equal to. Okay. We have to always start any formula with an equal to in Excel. And when we are typing, for example, let us just first see the VLOOKUP formula. When we are typing the VLOOKUP formula here, if we start typing here, you can see there is a helper drop down that is being shown, and I can just go through the helper drop down with my keyboard itself just by pressing the down arrow bar, and then I can just go to the VLOOKUP and press tab to select it. When I press tab, see there is a opening bracket that is available here. So when this particular opening bracket is there, we can start the formula. Okay, and here if you see, there are certain parameters to the formula which are there are certain compulsory parameters which we need to actually fill, and there are certain like optional parameters which we can use based on our requirement. Okay, so here if you see, there are four parameters here for VLOOKUP, that is lookup value, table array, column index number, and range lookup. So first we need to see what does a VLOOKUP formula do. Okay, see, a VLOOKUP formula does only one particular thing. It searches the data that we want to search in the data set that we want to search, and then brings back certain things from there based on the search results. Okay, it is exactly similar to Google, but a little bit in a different way, where we ask Google something and Google gives us output, right? In the same way, what we do, we look up something to get something from the other data, and it just looks up that particular commonality and brings us something, correct? So when I say lookup value here, what it means is, see, whatever I want to get it from, I mean, whatever I want to look for that data in the other data set. Okay, so when I say lookup value, I can say employee ID is my lookup value, because based on these employee IDs, I want the informations to be populated here from this particular table here. Okay, so this is my data set here. So these are my lookup values, and the columns I want can be populated here, correct? So now I can do what? I can just say this is my lookup value. So I'm just taking my cursor with a mouse and selecting it here, and then as soon as I put a comma here, see, the next parameter is automatically bolded. So these are all formula helpers which help us write the formula or know in which section of that particular formula we are in, correct? So now we need to select the table array. Now table array is nothing but the whole data set. So I'll select the whole data set automatically through the table option. I have selected it through shortcut shift space and control space. And then see, the TB name here shown here is nothing but the name of the table. Okay, it's not showing A4 to G32 because I have already created an Excel table here which I have named it as TB itself. So that is why here the name of the table is being shown rather than the range itself, correct? So this is also a range. So after me selecting the data, first thing we need to do is the column index number. We need to know the column index number which we want to bring it back. See here, what I'm doing here is I want to look up the employee ID, and I want to look up in this particular table, and then what I want the employee name to be brought here, because I'm putting formula the employee name column here. I want the employee name to be brought forward. So what I can do is I can say, since employee name is in the second column 1 and 2, so it's in the second column, my column index number will be 2. Okay, And range lookup will always be false in case I want to do an exact match. Approximate match also can be done, but it is in very rare cases. We generally don't use that. Okay, so exact match will be my option. I'll select exact match. That is always, it will be false. And then I can now close my VLOOKUP formula. So now this particular formula is complete. If I press enter, it should start getting calculated. Okay, but before going forward, we need to know one more very crucial thing in VLOOKUP. See, the lookup column, that is, see here I am looking up for employee ID, right? So this particular thing is a lookup value, and here is the lookup column where I'm going to look it up. So employee ID is available in this data where in this particular A column, correct? So that is actually called as a lookup column. So while we are using a VLOOKUP, it should always, the lookup column should always be the first column in the data set. Okay, if it is not in the first column, then it will not look up anything from the data set, because the lookup value which you are looking for will be looked up only in the first column of the data set, whichever you are selecting. And over and above that, see, VLOOKUP will look only to your right. So when your lookup column is here, it can only look from B column to G column. Okay, it cannot go, if suppose I place this employee ID in the B column, it cannot look up backwards. Okay, so this is the basic logic of VLOOKUP, where we can just say VLOOKUP does this. And now let me just press enter to actually execute the VLOOKUP formula here. And once I press here, see E001, now it is saying in the E001, John Smith is the employee name. That is employee ID. If it is E001, John Smith is the employee name. So I can change this lively also, and I can show you. See, if I say E010, see the name is changing to Olivia Harris, or I can say E015 to Kevin Carter. So you guys are able to see, this is why a formula is very much preferred, because it lively updates the data which it is created on. Okay, so what I can do is, since I need to put the formula for all these rows also, I can just drag the formula to this fill handle. If you see, there is a small square box at the end of the cell here, correct? So it is actually called as a fill handle, which I can just double click on to fill the formula everywhere else in the rows. Okay, so when we do this, no need for us to rewrite the VLOOKUP formula again and again. We can just, it's like just copy pasting the formula to all the other rows that we need actually. Okay, now what we can do is, we can actually write the formula for department also. So let us just write again. So when I'm writing the formula for department also, is equal to VLOOKUP. And now my lookup value is what? My lookup value is again employee ID, and my lookup table array is the whole table again, because see, the first column is employee ID, so I can directly select the whole table here. And my column index number is nothing but, see, department is in which column? 1, 2 and 3, third column. So I'll select the third column here. Okay, now what I need to do is, I need to say exact match, that is false. Always I have to do that, and I'll just press enter here, and I can just drag down the formula. So now a basic VLOOKUP formula has been applied. See, how do we write a formula? We write a formula using, first starting with an equal to always, and then we start typing the formula, where the formula will be shown in the drop down list. In that drop down list, whatever we need, actually we can just select it. So whatever formula need, for example, if I say equal to VLOOKUP, here if you see in this drop down list, I have, go ahead and select VLOOKUP here through pressing tab. Then over and above that, this is a formula helper which helps us show which section of formula I am in. So first it is asking me for a VLOOKUP parameter, and if I put a comma here, it will ask me for a table parameter, and now it will ask me for a column index number parameter, and next is range lookup, correct? So these are the parameters that we do here. And after that, and after executing the formula, what we need to do, if we want to fill down the formula here of, or if we want to copy it to all the other rows also, what we can do is, we can use the fill handle to actually drag down the formula. Okay, now this is how a basic VLOOKUP works. You can see automatically all the VLOOKUP is fetching the data from the employee ID from this particular table. So if what it indirectly means is, each an employee ID is linked to the data of that particular employee, right? So E007, so any employee ID I change here, it will lively get updated. For example, E007, and I say enter here. So what is happening? See, instantly it is changing to David Miller ID. Okay, so this is how a formula works, and this is how a VLOOKUP formula works. Okay, so this is how we used to do in olden days, how we have to put a VLOOKUP formula, and we just do things here to make it work. The VLOOKUP works in this way, correct? So what we can actually do is, instead of using VLOOKUP, we have one more lookup formula. So generally, any lookup formula in Excel does what? It searches for one particular value in another particular data there, and then it brings back some other data that we want from that particular data, correct? So now we have something called as XLOOKUP, which is a very latest formula, and it's much easier than VLOOKUP. Rather than knowing the column numbers, counting the column numbers, or not being able to look to the left of the lookup column, all those things are like made easy in XLOOKUP. Okay, so XLOOKUP can, all those limitations are actually removed. So now when I say XLOOKUP, so is equal to, see again, I'm just typing the formula here. There is a list. I'm going to that formula, selecting it with a tab, pressing tab on the keyboard. Now what I'm doing here is, see now the lookup value. So now my lookup value is what? Again, employee ID. Now it is asking me only for a lookup array. So it is not asking me for the whole table. It is just asking me only for the lookup array. So it is just asking me where my employee ID can be found in this data. So what I can do is, I can select only that particular column where my employee ID can be found, and then I can just go ahead with other things. Okay, so I have just selected only one column here where my employee can be found. After that, I have gone to the next parameter here. Okay, so it is asking me what is my return array. So it is asking me what do I want in return, like which column as an output I want, correct? So it's very simple. I want the employee name, so I'll just go here and select this particular column. So here, if you see, when I'm using XLOOKUP, there is no hassle of counting the columns, putting number of columns or true or false. All those things are not necessary, because by default XLOOKUP takes care of everything automatically. We just need to select the VLOOKUP, like lookup lookup value here, and the lookup array and the return array. That's it. Only three basic conditions needs to be known, and all the other three are optional. If you want, you can utilize those optional things. It's not necessary that you have to always write a formula with all those optional things also. So now what I can do is, you can just press enter, and now if you see, it is giving me the same output, but the formula is much more simpler to understand and just to use also, correct? So when I say again XLOOKUP, for department also, what I'll do, I'll say employee ID here, and then lookup value, comma lookup array. Now my lookup array is nothing but the employee ID column, and now the return array is what? It is just the employee name column. I mean department column. Correct. So what I'll do, I'll just again press enter, click on the cell, fill, use the fill handle. As simple as that. So this is how you use a formula, XLOOKUP formula in Excel. Okay, so XLOOKUP formula is comparatively very easier to use, and it's much easier to understand also, because there are just three things that you need to do for any basic XLOOKUP. Over and above that, if you want, other conditions can be added, not an issue. Uh, yeah. So if you guys have understood this, what we can do here is, you can just go ahead with the other formulas. Well, I'll just give you 5 more minutes. If you guys have any doubts, you can just ask me, or I'll just proceed with the match function, which is very important when we use dynamic VLOOKUP or putting array formulas. We can use a match function also. Okay. Yeah. So anyone has any doubts, they can ask me in the live chat. Okay, I'll just proceed further with other thing. So now if you see, what we will do is we'll see a match function. What does a match function do? A function is nothing but a formula. Whenever I say function, it means it is a formula, correct? So what I have to do, I have to start any formula in Excel with an equal to here. And what I want the match formula. So I'll just say MA. And if you see here, the match formula is listed in this list. I'll select it with a tab. And now it is again asking me for a lookup value. Match also is a lookup formula, but it slightly does a different thing than other all lookup formulas. The output of this will be a little bit slightly different here. So when I have match function here, what I can do is I can say we'll again lookup value is this, and it is only asking for a lookup array. It's not asking for the whole table here. You can see that, right? So I'll just select only where my lookup value is available in this particular column, and then I can just select say 0 here, that is exact match. So this is a very compulsory condition for match. So in match formula, this is a compulsory condition that we want exact match, less than match, or greater than match. Okay. So now when I press enter here, see what is happening here. It is showing me something here, that is, it is showing me certain numbers here. So we need to know what are these numbers and why match is giving us this number. See, ideally it should give us employee name, right? But why match is giving us this is, see, match does only one particular thing. It gives you the position of the data where it is in that particular data, correct? So the position of the data here, if you see, E001, E015 is there in the 15th row. Okay, in this particular table, see, actually saying row is 18 here, but the table is starting from here, right? And the data is starting from the 4th. So from there, what it is doing is it is saying it is in the 15th row or the 15th position in that particular data. So match function will give me the position for the data in the rows also, in the columns also. For example, if I want to know which column in which column I have employee name or department or salary, so it will like go and check the column number for, I mean, it will fetch me the position of the column also from the given data set. Okay, so how do I do that? See, instead of putting a lookup value as employee ID, what I can do is I can use a lookup value as the column name, that is employee name is my column name, and I just want to know where my column is positioned in this particular data. So when I'm selecting this, now I'll not select any row here because my lookup array itself is what is just the column headers here. So I'm just selecting the column headers, and then I'm just saying 0 here, which is always needs to be said, otherwise it will not be correct. So here if you see, now employee name, it is saying that it is in the second column. Okay, so if I drag this, it will show department is the third column. For example, if I change this employee name, for example, I just cut this, I'll paste it here somewhere else. So automatically you see employee name has changed to third column. Or if I want to cut this and I paste it somewhere else, for example, if I paste it here, so now what it is saying, in the given data set, employee name is in the sixth column. Okay, as simple as that. Now, in the same way, I can shift any column here and it will keep on giving me the position of that particular column. Okay. Now, let us just see how to use this match function. See, it looks like a very, very simple function. Okay, or a simple formula that returns only the position of the data that we are actually looking up. Correct. So, what match formula generally does is it gives us the position. So, how can we utilize it in our favor? That is what we need to actually see. So to utilize it in our favor, what we can do is we can use match function with a VLOOKUP formula to make it a dynamic formula. Okay. So when I say dynamic formula, I'll let you guys know what it is. But see, since today is the first session that you're learning formulas itself in Excel, okay. So it is actually, it might seem a little bit complex, but it is not so complex. It's just very easy, okay, if you understand. So when I'm saying again, what I have to do is first I have to write VLOOKUP here, and then now if you see, my lookup value is nothing but again employee ID. Now I have to select a table array. See, this is VLOOKUP and it is asking me for a table array. It's not asking me for a lookup array. So lookup array means only one column, and table array is nothing but the whole table. So I'll just select the whole table here. Okay. Now, when we are going to the next part, generally what we do, we put a column index number here. That is the column number that we want from here in this particular table, correct? So employee name is right now in the sixth column here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sixth column, correct? So what I suggest is each and every time, instead of putting the column number manually there, what we can actually do is we can actually put the column number through a formula also. Just now we have learned a match formula to actually get the position of the data, correct? So we can start writing the match formula inside itself, inside the VLOOKUP formula itself. So what I can do is I can say match. So this is actually called as a concept of nested formulas, that when we write formula inside a formula. So when I say is equal to VLOOKUP J5, that is J5 is nothing but the lookup value, table array is the TB, that is the whole table. And here in the next section, see, next section is what? Column index number. So instead of me writing the column index number, I am allowing match formula itself to find out the column index number and then bring me the appropriate data. Okay, see, I'll show you why I'm doing that also. So my lookup value here, see, I have to give the column index number. So I just want to know where my employee name is located. So I'll select the employee name here and I'll just go to the lookup array. Lookup array is nothing but the headers of this particular table, because the employee name, it's not the actual name that I'm finding. I'm actually finding the column here. Correct. So employee name is the column. Where do I have to find it? In all these columns. Okay. So now if I'm saying 0, what is happening here? It is doing an exact match here. And over and above this, see, we have a VLOOKUP also pending right now. So we have to complete this formula. So here I'll give exact match, that is false. Okay, as simple as that. Again, I'll close the brackets here and I'll press enter. Now if you see, it is giving me the same output, but the only thing is for this dragging will be a little bit problem, because there is a concept, there is another concept for dragging the formulas here. Okay, generally anything in Excel is a relational. Okay, it is relational. Based on certain things, it will relate, a formula will relate to certain things, and then it will automatically keep on changing. So what I mean by that is, see, when I'm writing a formula here, if you see, there are certain ranges here, J5, K4 and all. So if I just copy this formula down, see, automatically what will happen, these J5 has to change to J6, otherwise I'll not get a proper data for E002, and then again it has to change to J7. So for all this to happen, generally what we do, we just use a fill handle. But here a fill handle will not be useful, because if you see here, it is looking up the correct value, but here if you see, it is not looking up the correct column. So to actually fix it, see what is happening here, because this is relational, this J5 here is turning to J6 here automatically. You can see in the second formula, it is automatically turning, correct? So in the same way, what will happen when you copy the formula by default without locking, there is a concept of locking. So if you do that without locking, if you drag down the formula, what will happen, it will actually not get executed properly. So what we need to do is we need to insert locks for the cells that we need to lock. So here in this particular formula, in K4, I want to lock only the fourth row, so I'll put dollar in front of 4 here. See, K4, I'm putting a dollar here. And in the same way, while I want to drag it to right, the formula drag it to right, so it shouldn't change then also, correct? So what I'll do is I'll just lock the J column here, but the rows can change. So I'm just uh, I'll just put a dollar here. Yeah, so the rows can change, so I'm leaving up empty here, but I'm just putting a dollar in front of J. Okay. So now I can press enter and I can just drag on the formula. You can see automatically it is coming correctly. Now you can drag it right also. Instead of me writing the formula again in that particular column, it is automatically bringing me the department. Okay, so how does it know it has to bring department? See, whatever I change, for example, I change salary and the joining date, right? This is joining date. So what I'll do, I'll just paste these two things here in the column headers, and if you see, instantly the data will also change here. See, the data is also getting updated based on whatever column names I have actually written there. Okay, so if you see here, what is happening, a dynamic VLOOKUP is into play. So as soon as the column names or the data, anything changes, it will automatically update the data relevant to that particular data here. So this is how we use a dynamic VLOOKUP, instead of me going and putting the column number each and every time manually, which would be a difficult work. Because see, right now, because I want employee name, I'm just changing the name here. If I want something, some other column also, I'll just change the name. But had I used numbers here instead of match, what I had to do, I had to each and every time go manually change it, and over and above that only I'll be able to use the formula, correct? But this formula is dynamic and prone to certain things in Excel which can be easily utilized here. Okay, so now, this is how we use a dynamic VLOOKUP. I know this is your first session for the formula and this might seem a little bit difficult, but generally you need to understand just the concept of the formula. As going forward, we'll be learning more and more formulas and more advanced tools in Excel. Okay. So yeah, does anyone have any doubt in today's session? Okay, so if you guys don't have any doubts, what we can do is we can just end the today's session here and then we'll meet tomorrow again. Thank you guys. Bye. See you tomorrow.